The storm had swallowed the highway whole, turning the world into nothing but darkness, thunder, and cold. Riders avoided these nights, truckers pulled over, and even animals hid from the sky, tearing itself open. But one man kept moving. One man who wasn't expecting to find something that would change the entire course of his night and his life. A small figure on the roadside, barefoot, soaked, shivering, and impossible to ignore. Before we continue, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Rain hammered the asphalt so hard it bounced back like mist, each drop a tiny silver needle under the highway lights. Most of the road was lost behind a curtain of water, the kind that blurred everything into shapes and shadows. The storm wasn't letting up. If anything, it was growing angrier by the minute. But Rex Dalton wasn't the type to wait out bad weather. His motorcycle growled through the storm like a beast that loved chaos, slicing through the darkness with a single white beam. Rex rode with the rigid calm of a man who'd been through worse storms, outside and inside. The rain soaked through his gloves, slid off his jacket, dripped from his beard, but nothing slowed him. Some men found peace in silence. Rex found it in movement. The road ahead flashed with lightning, bright for a moment, then swallowed again by the storm. That's when he saw it. A shape on the right shoulder. Small. Still. Wrong. Rex squinted through the downpour. Could have been trash. Could have been a torn bag flapping in the wind. But the way it stood, upright, unmoving, made something in Rex's gut tighten. He eased off the throttle. The engine's snarl softened to a rumble, tires hissing over wet pavement until the bike rolled to a stop a few feet away from the shadow. Rex killed the engine. The sudden silence, broken only by rain, felt heavy. He stepped off, boots sinking into shallow puddles. The rain slapped his face, cold and sharp. He took a few steps forward, eyes adjusting, until headlights fully hit the figure. A boy, a child, no older than 10, standing in the open like the storm didn't care if it swallowed him whole. Rex's heartbeat kicked hard once against his ribs. The boy's thin shirt clung to him like a second skin, soaked through beyond saving. His pants were ripped at the knees. His hair hung flat over his forehead, water streaming off it as if he'd been standing there for hours. His arms were wrapped around his body, fists clenched so tight his knuckles looked white even in the dim light. Rex spoke gently, lowering his voice so he wouldn't scare him. "Hey kid, everything all right?" The boy didn't look up at first. He swayed a little, not from fear, but from exhaustion, the kind that drained a person down to nothing. Finally, he lifted his head, eyes unfocused, glassy. Rainwater traced the line of his cheek, mixing with the tremble in his jaw. Rex stepped closer slowly, palms open. "What are you doing out here?" The boy took a shaky breath that hitched halfway. It was like he wanted to speak, but his chest refused to let him. He tried again. "Yes, sir, please." The rest of his sentence disappeared in the wind. Rex felt something heavy settle in his chest. This wasn't a runaway messing around. This wasn't a kid who wandered too far. This was fear. Real fear. Without thinking twice, Rex shrugged off his leather jacket, thick, warm, lined, and twice the boy's size, and wrapped it around him. The kid almost vanished inside it, but he clutched the collar with stiff fingers like he'd been handed something priceless. Rex crouched, so their eyes were level. "We need to get you somewhere warm." The boy shivered harder, lips a bluish shade that scared Rex more than anything. I didn't know where to go," the boy whispered. Rex nodded once. "You're going with me." He lifted the boy gently, too gently for a man his size, but exactly as carefully as the boy needed. The kid's body was ice cold, so cold Rex could feel it through his shirt. The boy didn't resist. He didn't question. He simply rested his head against Rex's shoulder, breath shallow, tired beyond words. Rex carried him to the motorcycle, positioning him on the seat right in front so the boy could lean back against him for support. Rex wrapped the jacket tight around him, blocking the wind as best as he could. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the highway for a split second, but Rex didn't flinch. He leaned closer to the boy's ear and spoke softly. "Hold on to me. We'll be there soon." The boy nodded faintly, small hands gripping Rex's glove just enough to show he understood. Rex started the engine again. The roar cut through the storm like a warning to the darkness. With one arm around the boy to steady him, he rolled onto the slick road and headed toward the only place with lights still on at this hour, the Iron Serpent's clubhouse. The ride was slow, deliberate. The storm shoved against them sideways, rain stinging like gravel. Rex hunched protectively over the boy, shielding him as much as he could. The kid leaned into him, body trembling less now, whether from the jacket or the feeling of being safe. Rex didn't know. The neon serpent emblem finally appeared through the rain, flickering low but unmistakable, casting a faint blue glow onto the wet asphalt. Rex exhaled in relief. He pulled into the gravel lot, engine rumbling into silence as he parked. Warm, yellow lights spilled from the clubhouse windows, glowing like a hearth in the middle of the storm. Rex looked down at the boy again. The child's eyes were half closed, breath softer now, face peaceful in a way that only comes after running for too long. "All right, kid," Rex murmured, lifting him again with the same care as before. "Let's get you inside." Rex pushed open the door, carrying the boy into warmth, into light, and into a room full of men who had no idea their night was about to change. Rex pushed open the heavy wooden door, and the warmth hit him instantly. Heat from the old furnace, mixed with the smell of leather, grilled food, cigarette smoke, and motor oil. The Iron Serpent's clubhouse wasn't a place you brought strangers, much less children, but tonight wasn't a normal night. Inside, a couple of the guys were scattered around. Hammer and Twitch were at the pool table, arguing about a shot. Two prospects were cleaning carburetors near the bar. The jukebox hummed with some old rock track in the background, low enough to talk over. But all of them froze the moment Rex stepped in. Not because he was the president, not because he rarely looked shaken, but because he was holding a child, drenched, limp with exhaustion, wrapped in Rex's own jacket like some fragile thing the storm had almost devoured. Hammer straightened immediately, cue stick lowering to his side. "Boss, what in the—" Rex cut him off with a look. "Not anger. Something colder. Sharper. Get me a blanket. And turn the heater up." Twitch was already moving before Rex finished the sentence. The prospects scrambled, bumping into each other in their rush. Hammer stepped closer, his usual tough expression shifting into something surprisingly gentle. "What happened to him?" "Found him on the side of the highway," Rex said, voice low, steady. "Barefoot. Freezing." Hammer let out a long breath, shaking his head. "Damn." Rex carried the boy to the big couch near the heater, old, worn, but soft, and laid him down carefully. The moment the warmth touched his skin, the kid stirred, curling slightly as if protecting himself even in sleep. Twitch rushed over with a thick brown blanket. "Here, boss." Rex took it and wrapped it around the boy, tucking the sides in so heat wouldn't escape. The kid's shivering eased bit by bit, his breathing evening out. The room stayed quiet, all eyes on the small figure who looked so out of place in a biker clubhouse that the scene almost felt unreal. Hammer scratched the back of his head. "You get a name?" "Not yet," Rex said. He could barely talk out there. Twitch crouched at the edge of the couch, keeping a respectful distance but studying the boy with curious eyes. "He run away from somewhere?" Rex didn't answer immediately. He crouched beside the kid, brushing wet strands of hair from his forehead. His skin was cold, but not as dangerously cold anymore. Finally Rex said, "I think something scared him into running." Hammer grunted. "A storm like this?" "Yeah, ain't nobody's first choice." Rex frowned slightly, remembering the way the boy's voice shook even harder than his body when he whispered those two words, "Please help." The kid had been terrified long before Rex found him. The heater kicked on again, filling the space with a low hum. The boy exhaled softly, a little longer, a little freer, like his body was finally letting some of the fear go. One of the prospects, Jax, stepped forward nervously. Should we call someone? Like child services or something? Hammer shot him a glare. Kid shows up half dead in the rain, and the first thing you want to do is hand him to a bunch of suits? Rex didn't look away from the boy. No calls. Not until we know what he's running from. Jax swallowed hard and nodded, falling back. The club wasn't exactly a charity organization, but they had their own code. And that code said, you don't turn your back on someone who can't protect themselves. Not ever. Rex stood and went to the kitchen counter, grabbing a towel. He returned to gently pat the rainwater from the boy's face and hair. The kid stirred again, his eyes fluttering just a little. Hey, Rex said softly. You're indoors now. You're safe. The boy's lips moved, barely. A whisper, almost lost to the crackle of the heater. Warm. Rex felt something twist deep inside him. Something unfamiliar, powerful, and hard to push down. We'll get you warmer soon. The boy blinked slowly, his gaze drifting across the room. He saw Hammer's size and flinched instinctively. He saw the prospects, the leather cuts, the tattoos. Every muscle in his small body tightened. Rex immediately kneeled back beside him. It's all right. Nobody here's gonna hurt you. The kid's eyes went back to Rex's face, studying him, searching for lies. When he didn't find any, some of the tension left his shoulders. What's your name? Rex asked quietly. The boy swallowed. His voice was small, shaky, but clearer this time. Liam. Rex nodded. Good. Liam. I'm Rex. The boy's fingers tightened slightly on the blanket. Where am I? A safe place, Rex said. A warm place. Liam looked around again, still unsure, but the exhaustion was winning. I was scared. Rex placed a hand gently on his shoulder. I figured. Hammer approached, but kept a respectful distance. Liam, you hungry? The boy hesitated as if he didn't trust the question, then nodded once, very slowly. Hammer motioned to Twitch. Go heat up some soup. Twitch jogged off. Liam's breathing steadied, his eyes drifting again, half aware of everything happening around him. But his hand reached out, small and shaking, and gently tugged on the sleeve of Rex's shirt. Rex leaned in. Yeah. Liam whispered, they might come. Rex froze for half a second. Not in fear. Rex didn't scare easily, but in understanding. This wasn't a case of a lost boy. This was a boy fleeing someone. Who, Liam? Rex asked gently. Who's coming? Liam's eyes filled, not with tears from the cold now, but something deeper, something older. He swallowed hard. I don't know their names, he whispered, but they were in my house. Hammer's jaw clenched. Liam continued, voice trembling harder with each word. My mom told me to hide. She said not to make a sound. She was scared. Rex kept his voice steady. Where is she now? Liam's breath hitched, and he curled tighter into the blanket, like the memory hurt to even hold. I don't know. The room fell silent except for the rain pounding the windows. Rex exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. All right, Liam. You don't have to talk more right now. You rest. Liam nodded weakly, eyes closing, trusting that he could finally sleep. As the boy's breathing steadied again, Hammer whispered beside Rex. This ain't random, is it? Rex shook his head once. No. Someone scared that kid enough to run into a storm. He looked toward the door, where water still dripped off his boots, forming a small puddle. And if they were in his house, Rex added quietly, they won't just forget about him. The heater hummed. The rain hit harder, and the iron serpents silently understood. Tonight wasn't just about sheltering a child. It was the beginning of something they couldn't yet see. The rain had slowed to a tired drizzle by the time they reached the clubhouse. Thick drops sliding down the metal siding like the building itself was exhaling after holding its breath too long. The boy stayed glued to the biker's chest, fingers hooked into his cut like he was holding onto the last solid thing left in his world. Ryder pushed the door open with his shoulder. Warmth. Light. and the low rumble of voices that suddenly stopped when everyone looked up. The kid stiffened instantly. Ryder felt it, like a flinch that happened underneath the skin. He lowered his voice. "It's all right, kid, these are my people." Inside, the hounds were scattered across leather couches, high stools, and the long wooden table scarred with old knife marks and beer rings. It wasn't a fancy place, just worn-in comfort, warm lights, and the steady smell of coffee, oil, and lived-in years. But to the boy, it must have been a different planet. A few of the guys stood up slowly, not wanting to spook him. Diesel crossed his arms, scanning the kid like he was trying to understand every bruise, every shake, every bit of fear. Tank stepped closer, but Ryder shot him a look. "Give him space." The boy buried his face deeper into Ryder's chest. This wasn't just fear. This was someone who'd learned the hard way that adults meant danger. Ryder tightened his hold slightly. Then, quietly, "Got us a situation, boys." No one joked. No one made a crack like they normally would. The kid's trembling said everything. Ryder sat down on the couch with the boy still in his arms. The kid refused to loosen his grip. Ryder didn't make him. He just kept his voice steady. "Hey, look at me." The boy lifted his head, just an inch. Eyes red, face pale, hair stuck to his forehead. "You're safe here," Ryder said. "You hear me?" "Safe." The boy nodded faintly. But Ryder could tell. He didn't believe it yet. He motioned for Patch, the quietest and most gentle of the group. "Grab a towel." Patch returned with two, one warm, straight from the dryer they kept near the back for winter rides. Ryder wrapped one around the boy. The kid shivered hard at first, then slowly, finally, his muscles started to unclench. Diesel crouched in front of them. "Kid." His voice, normally rough like gravel on metal, dropped to a soft rumble. "What's your name?" Silence. The boy pressed his lips together. Ryder tried again. "You want to tell us what happened?" Another silence. Then, barely more than a whisper. "No." Not defiant. Not rude. Just scared down to the bone. Ryder exchanged a look with Diesel. No name. No information. Just bruises and fear. Tank stepped forward, rubbing the back of his neck like he wished he could hit something. "Who did this to him?" Ryder shook his head. "We can't push him." But Tank wasn't asking the boy. He was asking the universe. The kid's eyes flicked toward Tank's voice, then away. "Are they coming?" he whispered. That one question made the entire room still. Every biker froze. Ryder's jaw clenched. "Who?" he asked softly. But the kid shook his head quickly, like saying more would get him hurt. Patch stepped in, kneeling beside Diesel. "Kiddo, you hungry?" The boy's fingers twitched. Then a tiny nod. "All right, I'll fix you something." Patch stood. "Mac and cheese okay?" No reaction. Then another small, hesitant nod. Patch moved to the kitchen. Ryder watched the boy slowly turn his head, tracking the sound of utensils, the clatter of a pot, the hiss of the stove. The kid wasn't just observing. He was listening for danger. Listening the way someone learns to when every loud sound means trouble. Diesel spoke again, low and steady. "You're not going to be hurt here. You got my word." The kid swallowed, whisper-thin voice breaking a little. "People say that, and then..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Ryder shut his eyes for a second. His hands tightened around the boy's back. "Not us," he said quietly. "We ain't those people." The boy leaned into him, just a little, as if testing the weight of trust. Patch returned with a bowl of steaming mac and cheese, cheddar thick and the kind that smelled like pure comfort. He set it down on the coffee table and stepped back. "Whenever you're ready, champ." The boy reached out slowly, then flinched back, like he thought someone might grab his wrist. Ryder nudged the bowl closer. "There you go. It's yours. Take your time." The boy reached again, hands shaking, and finally began to eat. Small bites at first, then bigger ones. Hunger breaking through fear. Diesel whispered to Ryder, "We need to call someone." Ryder shook his head. "Not yet. He doesn't trust us. If we push too fast, he'll run," Diesel finished. "Exactly." The boy paused mid-bite, looking between them, trying to read their tones. Ryder smiled gently. You're not in trouble, kid. We're just figuring stuff out. The boy nodded again, quick, nervous. When the bowl was empty, the kid curled up beside Ryder instead of on him. That alone felt like progress. Tank, unable to stand still any longer, muttered, "I swear, if someone laid a hand on him." His fists clenched. The leather of his gloves creaked. The boy's head shot up, eyes wide. He wasn't scared of Tank. He was scared for something else. Then he whispered the first full sentence they'd heard from him. "Please, don't let them find me." Every biker straightened. Ryder felt the words hit like a punch to the ribs. He leaned forward. "Kid, who's coming?" The boy's eyes filled with terrified tears. His voice shook. "It's them, the ones with the—" He choked, covered his mouth, shut down completely. Ryder exhaled slowly. Okay, it's all right." But something had changed. The kid hadn't just been lost. He hadn't just been scared. He was running. From someone. Or something. And now, he wasn't running alone. Ryder placed a hand on the boy's back. "We got you." The kid didn't respond with words. But he leaned against Ryder again. Harder than before. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance. One last rumble as the storm moved on. Inside, the boy's breathing steadied. But every biker in the room knew. This wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. The rain finally stopped outside, but inside the clubhouse, a different kind of storm sat in the room. The boy lay curled at the far end of the couch now, wrapped in Patch's warm blanket, eyelids heavy, breath slow but uneven. Ryder stayed beside him, not touching, just close enough so the kid knew he wasn't alone. The hounds didn't return to their usual noise. No laughter, no clinking bottles, no music humming from the old speakers in the corner. Just quiet, heavy, waiting. Tank paced a slow path back and forth like a caged bear, boots thudding softly across the wooden floor. Diesel leaned on the table, arms crossed, staring at the boy with the same intensity he used on suspects when he used to work security. Patch cleaned the kitchen counters even though they didn't need it. Everyone had the same thought. They just didn't know how to say it. Ryder finally broke the silence. "We need to figure out what we're dealing with." Diesel nodded once. "Agreed." Tank stopped pacing. "You heard what he said. Someone's looking for him. And they ain't the nice kind." Patch dried his hands and stepped closer. "Look at him. He's scared of everything. Sound, movement, talking too loud. Whoever he's running from, they didn't just scare him. They trained that fear into him." Ryder swallowed. He already knew Patch was right. A kid doesn't just tremble that way. Doesn't guard every sentence. Doesn't freeze when adults stand too close. The boy hadn't been lost. He'd been escaping. Ryder lowered his voice. "Let's not jump." Tank scoffed. "I'm not jumping. I'm stating a fact. A boy doesn't end up alone in the rain, bruised up, terrified of shadows, unless someone put him there." Ryder looked at the kid. His tiny hands still curled around the blanket like it was a shield. Face half hidden. Skin pale. Dark hair still damp. He looked small. Too small for whatever weight he was carrying. Ryder leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor for a moment. "We handle this carefully. Kid needs time. Stability." Patch nodded. "Food. Warmth. Quiet. Safety." Diesel exhaled through his nose. "Ryder, we might not have time. Whoever he's afraid of might already be looking." Ryder's jaw tightened. "I know." Tank sat down heavily on a chair, legs spread wide, elbows resting on his thighs. "So what's the plan?" Ryder didn't answer right away. He watched the boy's breathing, the rise and fall under the blanket. The kid wasn't asleep, not fully. He was in that half state where the body shuts down, but the mind stays ready to run. Ryder spoke quietly. "We make him feel safe enough to talk. When he's ready, he'll tell us what we need." Tank frowned. "And if whoever's after him comes before that?" Ryder didn't flinch. "Then they'll regret stepping foot near this place." That got a few nods. Silent ones, but solid. Patch softened his voice. "Maybe we should find him some dry clothes. Something comfortable." Ryder shook his head slightly. "Later. Let him settle first." The boy stirred then, eyes fluttering open. He didn't raise his head, just peered out from beneath the blanket, scanning the room again with those frightened, alert eyes. Ryder turned toward him slowly. "Hey." The boy blinked, not in surprise, more like he was checking if the world had changed while he was resting. "You thirsty?" Ryder asked. A tiny pause, then a small nod. Ryder stood up carefully so the movement wouldn't startle him. Patch stepped behind the bar to grab a bottle of water. Ryder held up a hand, slow. When he returned, he crouched beside the couch. He twisted the cap, but didn't hand it over right away. Instead, he set it on the cushion between them, just within the kid's reach, but not forced into his hand. The boy hesitated, then reached out, fingers brushing the plastic like he expected it to burn him. He took a few small sips. Not too fast, not desperate, just cautious. Ryder leaned back. "What's your name, bud?" The boy's hand tightened around the bottle. He stared at Ryder with a look that said he wanted to answer. He really did. But something inside him was locked behind a steel door. He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed hard. I can't." Ryder nodded gently. "That's all right." The boy looked confused by that answer, almost like he was waiting for punishment that didn't come. "What about where you're from?" Diesel asked softly. "Is it close to here?" The boy blinked rapidly, panic flickering in the back of his eyes. Ryder shot Diesel a warning look. "Easy." The boy's breathing quickened. He curled deeper into the blanket. Ryder moved closer and spoke with the calmness of someone holding back an entire storm. "You're not in trouble. No one's mad at you. We're just trying to help." The boy's shoulders relaxed, just a fraction, enough to start breathing normally again. Tank rubbed his hands together, restless. "We should at least check outside. Make sure no one followed him." Ryder nodded. "Take Diesel." Quiet sweep. Eyes open. Diesel grabbed his jacket. Tank grinned. Not a happy grin, but the kind a man gets when he's hoping trouble doesn't show up, but part of him wishes it would. The door shut softly behind them. Patch went back to the kitchen, giving space. Ryder stayed with the boy, just the two of them on the couch. The boy stared at the floor for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, "Am I staying here?" Ryder nodded slowly. "If you want to." The boy swallowed. "What if they come?" Ryder didn't raise his voice, didn't make a dramatic statement. He just spoke with the simple, steady certainty that defined his entire life. "Then they'll go through me first." The boy stared at him, not scared, not confused, just seeing him fully for the first time. And for the first time since Ryder picked him up from that rainy road. The boy's eyes softened. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. The clubhouse felt quieter than usual that night. Not tense, not dangerous, just softer. Like the place itself was lowering its voice because a child was finally resting. The boy sat upright now, wrapped in Patch's oversized blanket, hair still a little damp, but no longer dripping. Ryder stayed close enough to reassure him, far enough to give him space. Patch returned from the kitchen with a second plate, grilled cheese this time, edges golden, cheese soft and warm. He set it gently on the table. "You can eat whenever you like, bud," Patch said, stepping back with a small smile. The boy's eyes stayed on the plate, but his hands didn't move yet. He was hungry. Anyone could see that. But hunger and permission were two different things for a kid who'd spent too long without either. Ryder spoke softly. "Patch made that for you. It's yours. You don't have to ask." A tiny breath escaped the boy. Not quite relief, but something close. Slowly, he reached forward, took the sandwich with both hands, and began to eat in careful, measured bites. The hounds didn't speak over him. They didn't stare. They didn't crowd. They simply let the moment be. Diesel and Tank slipped back inside quietly, brushing off the cold. Tank gave Ryder a subtle signal. All clear. No cars, no strangers, no lights in the woods. Just an empty road and leftover rain. Ryder nodded. "Good. One less worry for tonight." Tank hung his jacket, sat on a stool, and ran a hand through his hair. "Road's dead quiet," he said. "No footprints or tire tracks except ours." The boy's eyes flicked toward Tank's voice, just for a second. then back to his sandwich. He was listening to every word. Diesel added, "Storm washed most things clean." But no signs anyone came looking. Ryder noticed the boy pause mid-bite. His shoulders lowered a bit, as if the news loosened something wrapped tightly inside him. Patch sat at the edge of the bar stool. "Kiddo, you need anything else?" "Tea." "Another warm towel." The boy shook his head. Just a small motion, but steady. Tank tapped his boots on the floor absently. "So, what do we call you until you're ready to tell us your name?" The boy froze again. Tank realized he'd spoken too directly and lifted his hands in apology. "Hey, no pressure. I just meant something you'd be comfortable with." The kid blinked slowly, thinking. Finally, he whispered, "You can say kid." Ryder smiled. "All right, kid it is." The boy seemed relieved, not because he liked the word, but because he didn't have to choose something that felt dangerous to reveal. Patch rubbed the back of his neck. "You got any allergies, kid? Foods we should avoid?" The boy shook his head. "Any pets?" Tank asked casually. The boy hesitated, then shook his head again. It wasn't the question itself, it was the attempt to understand him. And he wasn't used to that. Ryder leaned back on the couch, arms resting along the top, voice low and steady. "You warm enough?" A nod. "You want to wash up later?" "We got clothes in the lost and found. Mostly biker stuff, but clean and comfy." Another nod, this one slower. Ryder's heart eased a little. Kid wasn't talking much, but he wasn't shutting them out anymore. That was a start. Diesel sat across from them, elbows on his knees. "Kid, listen. You don't need to tell us everything tonight. You don't need to tell us anything you don't want to. But if you do need help, we need to know what direction to look in." The boy's fingers tightened around the plate. He swallowed hard. Ryder placed a gentle hand on the couch cushion, near the boy but not touching him. "You're safe for now. That's what matters." The boy looked at him. Really looked, studying his face like he was trying to find the lie hiding underneath the words. He didn't find one. Ryder spoke the truth the way some men breathe. The boy's shoulders softened again. Barely noticeable, but real. After he finished the sandwich, Patch handed him a small towel to clean his hands. The boy wiped them carefully, as if expecting someone to snatch the towel away or scold him for using it wrong. But no one did. Tank kept his voice gentle. "You like dogs?" The boy blinked, surprised by the question. "Yeah." Ryder nodded. "We got one around back. Old mutt named Shadow. Big soft goofball." The boy's expression changed just a little, a micro flicker of interest, like the first warm light after a storm. "If you want," Ryder added, "you can meet him tomorrow. He's slow, friendly, won't jump on you." The boy looked down at his hands. "Maybe." It was almost a whisper, but it held something fragile and hopeful. Patch stretched his back. "All right, kid. You got a full stomach. You're warming up. We can take you to the spare room soon. No pressure. Just whenever you feel ready." The boy didn't panic at the idea of a room. That alone told Ryder something. Whatever he'd run from, it wasn't rooms he feared, it was people. The hounds settled into softer conversations, low voices drifting, chairs shifting, mugs clinking. The clubhouse began to feel like a home again, not a shelter. And the boy, slowly, carefully, let his eyes drift around the room without flinching. Ryder tilted his head, watching the kids breathing even out again. "We'll be here," he murmured. The boy finally leaned back into the couch cushion, blanket tucked under his chin. No fear in his eyes now, just wariness wrapped in exhaustion. It wasn't trust, but it was the road toward it. Ryder stood, stretching his legs. "Let's get you settled in a bit," he said gently. "No rush, just so you can rest proper." The boy nodded, small and hesitant, but willing. And with that simple motion, the night began to shift towards something calmer. The clubhouse had calmed into a low hum by the time Ryder gently helped the boy stand. The kid's blanket trailed behind him like a cape that was too heavy, but he held on to it anyway, clutching it with both hands as if warmth itself might run away if he didn't. Patch dimmed the overhead lights, leaving only the soft glow from the bar lamps. It made the room feel gentler, less sharp, less overwhelming for a child who'd seen too much. Ryder crouched down to the boy's height. You ready to see the room? The boy's eyes drifted toward the hallway. Dark, quiet, unknown, and his small shoulders tensed again. Not fully afraid, just cautious. Caution so practiced, it was second nature. Ryder didn't rush him. He simply extended a hand, not offering to hold, just offering to guide. A choice, not an order. The boy hesitated, then stepped forward without taking the hand. That was fine. Forward was enough. As they walked down the hallway, the sounds in the clubhouse faded into a distant murmur. Tank mumbling about coffee, Patch washing the last dish, Diesel checking the locks because that's what Diesel did. Ryder opened the door to the small spare room. Not fancy, not decorated, just clean. A single bed, a folded quilt, a lamp glowing soft amber, a dresser, and a window that looked out over the back lot where the rain was still dripping steadily off the gutters. The boy stopped in the doorway. He didn't enter. He just stared at the bed like it was something he didn't quite know how to use. Ryder kept his voice low. This room's yours tonight. No one else comes in. You lock the door if you want. We'll be right outside. The boy turned toward him slowly. Lock it. Ryder nodded. Only if it makes you feel safer. The boy looked back at the bed, then the window, then Ryder. What if someone comes in from outside? Ryder stepped beside him. Not close enough to crowd, just close enough to answer honestly. They'd have to get past us first. And they won't. Something in the boy's posture loosened. Not all the way, but enough to take one small, careful step into the room. Ryder watched him walk toward the bed and touch the quilt with the backs of his fingers, like testing if it would disappear. You can sleep with the blanket you're holding, Ryder said. No rules here about that. The boy gave the smallest nod. Okay. Ryder stayed in the doorway. You want a night light? We got one in the storage drawer. The boy considered that, then whispered, Leave the hallway light on? Of course. Ryder clicked the door halfway shut, but didn't close it fully. The kid didn't ask him to. He didn't ask him not to. Halfway felt right. When Ryder returned to the clubhouse common area, Tank was sitting at the bar, sipping a mug of something that definitely wasn't coffee. He settle in? Tank asked. Trying, Ryder said. Patch dried his hands on a towel. That room gets cold sometimes. I'll bring an extra blanket. Ryder held up a hand. Give him a little time. He needs space. Diesel checked the back door again, twisting the lock twice out of habit. You see the way he kept looking at windows? Ryder nodded. Yeah. Kid's seen things, Diesel muttered. Not just running. Hiding. Tank leaned back, sighing loudly. I know you don't want to talk about the worst-case scenario yet. We're not jumping to anything, Ryder cut in. Tank shrugged. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be ready. Ryder didn't disagree. Not out loud. But inside, he knew Tank was right. They gave the boy 10 minutes. A quiet 10. Long enough for a child alone in a strange place to either settle or panic. When Ryder finally stood to check on him, Patch gently stopped him. Take Shadow. Ryder blinked. What? Patch pointed toward the back door. He's lying by the storage crates. He'll calm the kid down better than we can. Shadow was a big, black-furred mutt, half Labrador, half question mark, with a slow walk, a gray muzzle, and eyes that looked like he could see storms before they formed. He'd been the hound's unofficial therapy dog for years. Ryder grabbed a handful of dog treats from the jar and whistled softly. Shadow lifted his head, stretched lazily, and lumbered over. Come on, old man, Ryder murmured. We got a job. Shadow followed him down the hallway, nails clicking lightly on the wood floor. Ryder eased the spare room door open another inch. The boy wasn't in the bed. He was sitting on the floor beside it, back to the wall, knees drawn to his chest, blanket wrapped like armor. Not crying, not shaking, just too alert to sleep. Ryder crouched. Hey, kid. Someone wants to meet you. The boy looked up quickly, tense, until he saw Shadow step into the light. The kid's eyes widened, then softened. Shadow sniffed the air, walked slowly toward him, and sat down right in front of him like he had chosen the boy and not the other way around. The boy reached out a hesitant hand. Shadow leaned into it immediately. The boy's breath hitched, quiet, but there. He's soft. Ryder smiled. He likes people who need him. Shadow lay down, pressing his warm side gently against the boy's legs. The kid didn't pull away, didn't flinch. He leaned into the fur, just a little. Ryder stood. We'll be right outside if you need us. Shadow'll stay if you want him to. The boy nodded slowly, fingers buried in Shadow's coat. Yes, please. Shadow settled with a sigh, already falling half asleep. The boy curled beside him, not quite lying down, but no longer sitting rigid with fear either. It wasn't safety yet, but it was rest. And rest was the first step. Ryder quietly closed the door to its halfway point again. He walked back to the others, exhaling for the first time in what felt like hours. Tank raised an eyebrow. Well, he's okay, Ryder said. Shadow's with him. Diesel smirked faintly. Smart dog. Patch leaned on the counter. Tomorrow will tell us more. Ryder nodded. Yeah, tomorrow. When the sun rose, a child who had spent too long running would wake up in a place where no one was chasing him. And maybe, just maybe, he'd start to see the clubhouse not as a hiding place, but as somewhere he could breathe. The road out of Blackridge Bay was washed clean from last night's storm, and the early afternoon sun broke through the clouds like it was trying to make up for the mess it left behind. Diesel rode slow, not because his bike couldn't fly, but because the kid sitting behind him wasn't used to speed. Liam's small hands were gripping Diesel's vest, and every now and then Diesel felt a tiny shift as the boy adjusted, trying to balance himself like he'd seen in the movies. Diesel kept talking over the engine, keeping his voice gentle. You doing all right back there, kid? A small nod pressed into his back. Yeah, just never been on a bike before. Diesel smiled. Well, you picked a hell of a bike to start with. The Blackridge Bay sign disappeared behind them, and the open highway stretched forward. The air smelled like wet grass, gasoline, and new beginnings. Liam leaned to the side slightly, looking out toward the fields. It feels different, he said quietly. Not scary, just big. Diesel glanced at him in the side mirror. The world usually feels smaller when you're scared, he said. Then one day, something changes, and suddenly you realize there's more out there than the place you came from. Liam didn't respond, but Diesel felt the kid take a deeper breath, maybe the kind someone takes when they've been holding tight to their fear for too long. They rode another 8 minutes before the first houses came into view. Liam's posture changed, not stiff, but something heavier, like responsibility sinking down into his shoulders. You okay? Diesel asked again. Yeah, just nervous. About what? Seeing her. My mom. After everything. Diesel exhaled slowly. Kid, you don't owe anyone a perfect version of yourself. You just show up. That's enough. Liam didn't say anything, but Diesel felt his grip loosen, not from fear, but trust. They turned off onto a side street where the houses were small, old, and tight together. Laundry lines hung between backyards. Kids played football in driveways. A dog barked at the sound of Diesel's exhaust. Liam pointed. That one. The blue door. Diesel eased the bike to the side of the road. Liam slid off, boots landing on the ground like he wasn't sure they belonged there. Diesel removed his helmet and placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. Remember, he said, you're not alone walking into this. I'm right here. Liam nodded. He wasn't trembling like the day Diesel found him in the rain, but he wasn't steady either. The house looked tired. A plant sat wilted in a pot on the step. The curtains were half drawn. Diesel could hear a TV inside, low volume, the kind people keep on to fill silence. Liam stepped up and hesitated before the door. He looked back at Diesel, who gave a small nod. Go on, Diesel said softly. Knock. Liam raised his fist and tapped twice. There was a pause, a shuffle of feet. The door opened. A woman stood there, tired eyes, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled, like she'd been awake through more nights than she could count. When she saw Liam, her breath caught. Liam? Her voice cracked. Baby. Liam froze. Then she pulled him into her arms, dropping to her knees on the doorway, holding him like she was afraid he would vanish if she let go. Where have you been? I've been. God. I've been looking everywhere. I thought something happened. Why didn't you? She broke into tears against his shoulder. Diesel looked away for a moment, giving them that small piece of privacy. Liam whispered something Diesel couldn't hear. His mother cupped his face, eyes searching him. Are you hurt? Did someone? Liam shook his head quickly. No, I'm okay. He turned slightly, glancing back at Diesel. He helped me. Her eyes followed his gaze. Diesel stepped forward, nodding respectfully. Ma'am. Her expression softened, gratitude overtaking shock. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Diesel shifted his weight. He's a strong kid. Just needed someone to listen. She wiped her eyes, pulling Liam close again. Do you want to come inside? At least for a minute? I don't know how to thank you properly. Diesel shook his head gently. This is your moment. You two got talking to do. I'm just glad he's safe. Liam stepped back, his hand still on the doorframe. Can I talk to him real quick? He asked his mom. She nodded, stepping aside. Liam walked back down the small path to Diesel. His voice was quiet. Thank you. For everything. If you didn't stop last night, I don't know what would have happened. Diesel placed a hand on the back of Liam's neck, not rough, but steady. Kid, sometimes we think we're invisible, but everyone deserves to be found. Liam swallowed hard. I'll see you again, right? Diesel smiled. I'm not going anywhere. Liam exhaled in relief, then stepped back toward the door. His mother wrapped an arm around him, guiding him inside. Diesel stood for a moment on the sidewalk, taking in the quiet. No chaos. No storms. Just a kid finally home. He put on his helmet and swung a leg over his bike. But before he kick-started it, a voice called out. Diesel. He turned. Liam was standing in the doorway, hand raised. Can you come back later? Please. Diesel nodded once. Yeah, I'll be around. Liam smiled, small, but real, and stepped inside as the door closed gently behind him. Diesel finally started his bike, letting it rumble beneath him. He didn't ride off fast, didn't peel out, didn't do anything dramatic. He just eased back onto the road, heading toward the clubhouse, mind steady, heart strangely full. Because something told him the boy's journey wasn't finished, and neither was his part in it. And as Diesel rode toward town, the sun finally broke through fully, lighting the road ahead. The rumble of Diesel's bike echoed through the alley as he pulled up behind the clubhouse. The sun was sliding west, turning the sky into a mix of gold and fading blue. A few bikes were lined up already. Some of the brothers were back early, some never left. Diesel killed the engine, pulled off his helmet, and let the warm air brush across his face. He wasn't sure what he was expecting when he walked in, but the moment he opened the door, all eyes lifted. Not suspicious, not intense, just waiting. Big Joe, leaning on the pool table. Riggs polishing a handlebar part on the counter. Patch sitting with a half-eaten burger. Even Bird, who rarely looked up from his phone, paused. Diesel closed the door behind him and tossed his gloves onto the bar. Riggs raised an eyebrow. You look like you wrestled a thunderstorm and lost. Diesel smirked. Close enough. Big Joe nodded toward him. Well, you gonna tell us why you disappeared last night, or we gotta guess? 'Cause you know Riggs' guesses always end with aliens. Riggs pointed at him. One time, Diesel dragged a chair out and sat, elbows on his knees. He wasn't the dramatic type, but for a second, he just looked at the floor, gathering the right words. The clubhouse quieted in that unspoken way bikers always understood. Silence when something mattered. Diesel exhaled. Found a kid. In the rain. Soaked to the bone. Maybe 12, 13. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. Bird's face changed, his usual blank expression tightening. Where? Outside the old highway diner. Riggs leaned forward. What was he doing out there? Hiding, Diesel said softly. Trying to get away from a mess he didn't know how to fix. Big Joe frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. What kind of mess? Diesel shook his head. Not my place to repeat his family business. But it wasn't him being bad. It was him being scared. Nobody interrupted after that. Something about Diesel's tone made sure of it. He continued. He was freezing, shaking, didn't have a plan, didn't even have dry socks. So I brought him back here, warmed him up, gave him food. Kid barely spoke at first. Patch nodded slowly. You did right. Storm like that? Anyone could have died. Diesel looked up at him. Yeah. Felt wrong leaving him out there. Riggs tilted his head. What about his folks? They know where he is. Now they do. Diesel leaned back in his chair. Took him home earlier today. Mom nearly collapsed when she saw him. They needed a minute. Years of things unsaid in 10 seconds. You know how that goes. The men nodded. They'd seen enough broken families in their time to know exactly what he meant. Big Joe scratched his beard. Kid all right now? He's safe. That's what matters. There was a pause. Not heavy, just thoughtful, before Patch asked quietly. You gonna check on him again? Diesel didn't hesitate. Yeah. Kid asked me to. Riggs smiled slightly. Makes sense. You're like a stray magnet for every lost soul in a 10-mile radius. Diesel chuckled under his breath. Ain't that the truth? Bird put his phone away completely. What's his name? Liam. The room softened at that. It wasn't the name. It was the way Diesel said it. Reserved. Protective. Like something about that boy had wedged itself under Diesel's armor without asking permission. Big Joe stood up straight, crossing his arms. Club's got your back. If his home situation gets messy again, or if someone's given him trouble, you say the word. Diesel shook his head gently. Not looking to get involved in anything heavy. Just want to make sure he stays okay. He's a good kid. Just needed someone to notice. Joe pointed at him. And you did. Diesel shrugged like he didn't need the praise, but he accepted the moment for what it was. Patch grabbed a soda from the fridge and slid it across the counter to Diesel. Drink. You look like you carried the whole night on your shoulders. Diesel caught it easily. Feels like it. The room slowly found its rhythm again. Riggs went back to tinkering. Big Joe resumed his silent aim at the pool table. Bird glanced at his phone, but didn't really go back to it. Patch settled into his chair. But throughout all of it, they stayed near Diesel, like wolves forming a loose, silent circle around one of their own. Diesel took a slow drink, letting the cold settle his thoughts. Somewhere between the hum of conversation and the low music drifting from the jukebox, Diesel replayed the moment Liam had stood in the doorway, asking if he'd come back later. That tone, that worry, that small flicker of trust. He didn't know why it hit him so hard. Maybe because it reminded him of a younger version of himself. Maybe because he knew what it felt like to wait for someone who never returned. Maybe because the boy deserved more than what life had given him so far. Bird finally spoke up again. When you going back to see him? Tonight, Diesel said simply. Not to talk, not to interfere, just to make sure the place is calm. Riggs pointed a wrench at him. You want company? Diesel shook his head. Nah, this is just a friendly check-in. Patch smirked. Look at you. Mr. Parenting 101. Diesel flicked the cap of the soda at him. Shut up. They laughed, the clubhouse settling back into familiar warmth. Diesel leaned against the bar, feeling the tension of the last 24 hours finally start to ease out of him. The kid was home. Safe. Dry. Warm. And Diesel had meant what he said. He wasn't going anywhere. As sunlight slipped lower outside the windows, casting long stripes across the concrete floor, Diesel checked the clock. Yeah, he'd give it an hour. Then ride back to that blue door. Not for drama. Not to play hero. Just to make sure Liam was settling back into the world he'd tried so hard to escape from. And the brothers? They didn't say it out loud, but Diesel knew. If the kid ever needed more than a check-in, he wouldn't be facing life alone ever again. The sun dipped low behind the rooftops by the time Diesel rolled out of the clubhouse parking lot. The engine's rumble was calmer than usual, a steady heartbeat under him instead of the wild roar he used when the day weighed heavy. The brothers had gone back to their routine, pool shots, tools clinking, quiet laughter, But Diesel knew every single one of them had clocked the moment he left. Not because he asked for backup, just because they cared. The late evening air was cooler than expected, carrying the last traces of storm scent, the kind that sticks to the pavement and reminds you how rough the night before really was. Diesel rode slow, hands steady, eyes focused. He wasn't rushing this visit. No drama. No checking in like a cop. Just making sure the kid who trusted him wasn't sitting alone in confusion. Street by street, the neighborhood grew quieter. Porch lights clicked on. Windows glowed warm as families settled inside for dinners, TV shows, the ordinary rhythms of people who didn't know what a night in the rain could do to someone. Diesel pulled onto Liam's street and cut the engine half a block away. No need to roar right up to the house and scare anyone. He rolled the bike silently along the curb before propping it on its stand. The blue door was visible from here. A porch light glowed. Curtains were open slightly, just enough to see shadows moving inside. Diesel stayed leaning over his handlebars for a moment, taking in the scene, grounding himself in what he was here to do. He wasn't barging in. He wasn't rescuing anyone. He was just keeping a promise. He walked up the sidewalk slowly, boots clicking lightly against the concrete. Halfway there, the door cracked open. Liam's face appeared first, eyes widening when he spotted Diesel, expression shifting from surprise to relief in seconds. "Diesel," he said, stepping onto the porch. Diesel lifted a hand. "Hope I ain't interrupting. Just wanted to see how you're holding up." Liam shook his head quickly. "No, it's okay. I was kinda hoping you'd come back." He stepped closer, voice dropping to something quieter. "My mom said it was fine if you came in for a minute. If you want." Diesel nodded once. "If she's all right with it, yeah. I won't stay long." Liam held the door open for him. Diesel walked in slowly, removing his gloves out of respect. The living room was small but tidy, blanket on the couch, a scented candle burning on the coffee table, TV paused on a news channel muted. Liam's mother stood from the armchair, brushing her hands on her jeans. She looked more rested than earlier, though her eyes were still red from crying. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "He told me you said you'd stop by." Diesel nodded. Didn't want him thinking he had to deal with everything alone today. She offered a gentle smile. "He hasn't stopped talking about you." Liam groaned. "Mom." Diesel chuckled. "Kids allowed to talk." They all sat. Liam on the couch, Diesel in the chair across from him, and his mother leaning against the doorway like she wanted to give them space without leaving the room. "How you holding up?" Diesel asked. Liam fidgeted with a loose thread on the couch cushion. "Better." It was kinda weird at first, talking to her about stuff. His mother's expression tightened, guilt flickering across her face. "I should have noticed earlier." Diesel lifted a hand carefully. "Hey, no point digging into should've. What matters is you both talking now." Liam nodded. "We talked a lot. I didn't tell her everything yet, but enough." His mother moved closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We're taking it one step at a time." Diesel watched their interaction with a quiet sense of relief. The fear in Liam's eyes last night had been a kind Diesel recognized. The fear of not belonging anywhere, of being forgotten, of being left behind. Seeing the boy anchored beside his mother now felt like watching a storm finally lose its power. Liam looked at Diesel again. "I didn't get to say this earlier, but last night, when you found me, I didn't think anybody would." "You weren't invisible," Diesel said. "You just needed someone to stop long enough to look." Liam's mother swallowed hard, brushing her thumb over her son's shoulder. "You saved him. I don't know how to repay that." Diesel shook his head. "Didn't do it for repayment. Anyone with a heart would have stopped." But they all knew that wasn't exactly true. Not everyone stops. Not everyone cares. Liam hesitated a moment before asking, "Can I still see you sometimes? Not like all the time. Just, sometimes." Diesel leaned forward slightly. "You can. And you can come by the clubhouse too, if your mom's all right with that. You're part of the circle now, kid. That doesn't go away." Liam's mom chuckled softly. "As long as he doesn't come home with a tattoo." Diesel grinned. "We'll start him with stickers." Liam laughed for the first time that night, really laughed, and the sound filled the small room with something warm and steady. They talked for a few more minutes about ordinary things, school, movies the kid liked, how Diesel once tried making pancakes and set off a smoke alarm. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't emotional. Just normal. Something Liam needed more than either of them realized. Eventually, Diesel stood. All right, I'm gonna head out. Let you two settle in. Liam stood quickly. Will you come tomorrow? Diesel met his eyes. Yeah, I will. Liam nodded, satisfied in a way only someone who's finally found safety could be. His mother walked Diesel to the door. Really? Thank you, she whispered. Diesel touched the edge of his helmet. Just glad he's home. He stepped out onto the porch, the night air settling against his skin. When he looked back, Liam waved from the doorway. Diesel lifted 2 fingers in return. As he walked back to his bike, streetlights flickering above, Diesel felt something settle inside him, something steady. He wasn't the kid's father. Wasn't trying to be. But he had become something else. A constant. A presence. A place to run to that didn't lead to fear. He climbed onto his bike. The engine started with a deep, comforting growl. Diesel rode off slow, not rushing anywhere, just carrying the quiet peace of knowing one small life was finally pointed in the right direction. Tomorrow, he'd check in again. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. Morning came slow and steady over the town, brushing golden light across Diesel's small apartment. He'd slept better than he expected, not because the world had suddenly turned perfect, but because one piece of it had finally settled into place. Liam was safe. The kid had a roof, warmth, and someone waiting for him inside that blue-doored home. Diesel brewed coffee, grabbed a second cup to go, no reason, just instinct, and headed out. The bike's engine warmed beneath him as he pulled onto the sunlit roads. Today wasn't a rescue mission. It wasn't even a check for danger. It was a check for connection. When Diesel turned onto Liam's street, he spotted something he didn't expect. Liam was already outside. The boy sat on the front steps, hoodie on, hands in his pockets, legs bouncing like he'd been waiting longer than he'd admit. When he saw the bike rolling closer, his face lit up. Not dramatic, just a small, genuine lift at the corners of his mouth. Diesel parked at the curb. You're up early, he said, stepping off. Liam shrugged. Couldn't sleep much. But it wasn't like before. Just kept thinking about stuff. Good stuff? Diesel asked. Liam nodded. Mostly. Diesel handed him the extra coffee cup. Careful. Hot. Liam blinked. For me? Yeah. Figured you'd like one. The boy held it like it was something valuable, blowing lightly on the steam. Liam's mother appeared at the door, a soft smile on her face. Morning, Diesel. Ma'am. You two heading somewhere? Liam looked at her, then at Diesel, then back again. Can I go with him for a bit? He said something yesterday about the clubhouse, and I kind of want to see it. If that's okay. His mother studied Diesel, not suspiciously, but carefully, the way a parent weighs trust. Whatever she saw in him, it must have been enough. Be back in a couple hours, she said gently. And stick with Diesel the whole time. Yes, Mom. Diesel touched the brim of his helmet politely. I'll keep him close. Liam climbed onto the bike, settling in with more confidence than yesterday. When Diesel started the engine, Liam didn't flinch. He leaned slightly forward, steadying himself. They rode across town, morning traffic light, and the air crisp. The clubhouse sat quiet when they arrived, the metal garage door cracked open. A couple of the brothers were outside. Patch sitting on a stool sipping soda, Bird scrolling through his phone, and Riggs organizing tools on a bench. All three looked up, and all three softened the moment they saw who Diesel had brought. Patch grinned. Look who it is. Our honorary junior member. Liam stepped off the bike, instantly nervous but pretending not to be. Diesel placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. They won't bite. Just don't let Patch tell you any stories before breakfast. Patch raised both hands. Hey, my stories build character. Bird scooted over on the bench. You can sit here if you want. It's not greasy. Well, Mostly not. Liam smiled shyly and took the spot. Diesel watched quietly as the kid relaxed faster than he expected. The club wasn't loud, wasn't rowdy this morning. They were calm, almost careful, like they understood exactly what today meant. Riggs tossed a small metal piece toward Diesel. Help me with this bracket. And tell the kid about the time you thought a raccoon stole your spark plugs. Diesel shook his head, smirking. One time, and it was dark. Liam laughed. A small, real laugh, and the sound pulled every brother's attention for a brief second. Not in an uncomfortable way, but in a way that said, "Good. He's breathing easier today." Diesel leaned against the workbench. "So, Liam, you ever fixed anything mechanical before?" Liam shook his head. "No. Closest thing I did was help my mom open jars." Patch chuckled. "Hey, that counts. Some grown men still can't." Riggs handed Liam a small metal washer. "Here, hold this for me. You're officially part of the operation." The boy studied the washer like it was a piece of treasure. Diesel noticed his hands were steady today, no shaking like the night in the rain. They worked together for a while, simple tasks, little things the brothers pretended were essential, just so Liam could be part of something. Diesel didn't interrupt. He just watched, arms crossed, letting the kid settle into the space naturally. After about an hour, Big Joe arrived. He stepped out of his truck with his usual presence, broad shoulders, heavy boots, but when he saw Liam, his expression softened instantly. "Well," Joe said, "looks like Diesel finally brought the storm survivor." Liam blinked. "Storm survivor?" Diesel smirked. "Word gets around in here." Joe crouched to Liam's height, not to intimidate him, but to meet him eye to eye. "Heard you're tougher than most grown men I know. Takes guts to get through a night like that." Liam shifted, a little embarrassed. "I was just cold. Cold or not," Joe said. "You made it. And you asked for help when you really needed it. That's strength, kid." Liam didn't know how to respond, but Diesel saw it. A small spark of pride warming the boy's face. After a bit more conversation, Diesel checked the time. "We should get you back soon." Liam nodded, but before leaving, he hesitated. Can I come again sometime?" Diesel looked at Joe, at Patch, at Riggs, at Bird. Each one nodded without needing words. Diesel placed a hand on Liam's back. "Anytime. This place is open to you now." "Really?" Liam asked, eyes widening. Riggs tossed him a small, silver keychain, shaped like a tiny motorcycle. "Welcome gift. Don't lose it." Liam caught it and held it tight. "I won't." The ride back to Liam's house was quiet, not awkward, just peaceful. Liam leaned a little more forward, trusting the ride, trusting the man guiding it. When they reached the blue door, Liam's mom opened it quickly, relief washing across her face when she saw him smiling. "How was it?" she asked. Liam held up the keychain proudly. "It was awesome." Diesel gave a respectful nod. "He fit right in." She smiled warmly. "Thank you for giving him something good." Diesel shook his head gently. "He gave us something too." Liam stepped forward. "Will I see you tomorrow?" Diesel placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Yeah, you will." The boy grinned, small but steady. Diesel walked back to his bike, the air warm, the street quiet, the world finally calm. He started the engine, gave Liam a wave, and rode off. Not as a savior, not as a hero, but as something much simpler and maybe much more powerful. A man who showed up, and kept showing up. As he rode into the afternoon light, Diesel knew one thing for certain. The night he found a shivering boy in the rain. It didn't change Liam's life alone. It changed his too.